Here we are at the conclusion of the General Convention, the 77th General Convention of the Episcopal Church, and I want to offer you just a brief wrap-up, a summary of the significant actions that have been taken over this past week or so. First, a little story. I was leaving my hotel room this morning and passed a woman whom I didn't know in the hallway, and we said good morning to each other, and then a few paces after we'd passed one another, she turned back and she said, "Oh, Bishop, I just want to thank you for what you're doing in the Diocese of Chicago. It's a real inspiration." I've heard similar comments throughout this convention. Our deputies are involved in key pieces of legislation and leadership, but beyond that, people are aware of the life and vitality of our diocese, and for that I'm very, very grateful. In terms of legislative measures, you will have seen news reports probably, but let me tell you the big five that I see. The first is our action around the Anglican Covenant, the agreement document that we've been asked to consider. There were two resolutions pertaining to the Anglican Covenant. The first reaffirmed our commitment as the Episcopal Church to full participation with our partners around the Anglican world. We have declared in no uncertain terms that we intend to be fully participative members in the life of the Church across all kinds of boundaries. The second resolution was a pastoral one, largely, I think, simply declaring what is the truth in this church, that we are of various opinions about the matter of the Anglican Covenant, simply declaring that and declining to take any action on it whatsoever, up or down, but simply in conjunction with the first resolution to agree to keep the conversation going. That's a pastoral reality in our church. The second, and probably the biggest news item in the secular press, is the blessing of same-sex unions. We authorized the liturgy for that in the Episcopal Church. Changes nothing really in the Diocese of Chicago. I've made pastoral provision for that already, as you may know. And what is remarkable about this piece of legislation is the generosity embedded in it, stating once again, nothing new, but stating it again, that no one, no cleric, no congregation in any way could be forced to offer these blessings, but rather offering them to the church in places where it is appropriate, that we may all grow together into the spirit of offering to gay and lesbian members of the church the full pastoral care of the church. The third item I'd point to is not a legislative piece, but it is perhaps the most important thing about the convention, and that is our daily worship. And our daily worship as a sign of the deeper connections we're all called into in the body of Christ. The Holy Communion, the word is related to communication for a reason. We've picked up old friendships, made new ones, renewed our commitment to one another, really in quite remarkable ways in both the House of Deputies and the House of Bishops. You'll be hearing more about that from me as time goes on. I've got a lot of sermon material to use. And speaking of communication, social networking was a more important part of this convention than ever. Talk about communication. At the height of the debates in the House of Bishops on the blessing of same-sex unions, we were told that we were in the number 10, in the top 10 in the tweeting universe, among the top 10 items at that moment. That means something like over 10 million people were following our debates. That's a new world, and communication we haven't even dreamed of before. The fourth thing is our work around the structure of the church. In some ways that occupied more of our time and attention than almost anything else. It's time to restructure this church in its governance. We know something about restructuring in the Diocese of Chicago, and a lot of people in the church have been following what we've been doing. In short, a task force is called for, 24 people, and significantly a task force to be made up of people who are at some distance from the current governing structures of the church, an outside view. And I can tell you there is tremendous value in that from our experience in the Diocese of Chicago. And then last was the election of a new leader in the House of Deputies. That's a significant thing in and of itself, but the person elected happens to be Gay Jennings, who is a priest known to many of us in Chicago. She has been of enormous help to us in our own reimagining of our life. She has until recently worked for Credo and is a force in the church. Her ministry has been so significantly about wellness for so many of us. I give thanks for her election. And the Honorable Byron Rushing was elected Vice President of the House of Deputies, brings his own history and venerable leadership to that work. So I'm coming home. Can't wait to get home. Thank you for your prayers, and I look forward to seeing you around the diocese. Let's be the church. Let's go. See you later.